What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Sunday night recap presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Simon, joined as always by my gunslinging co-hosts, G-Man Jay and John Luke Garofalo. What's up, boys?
Gang, what up?
Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, pew.
No, I'm pretty sure they say zap now, right? Didn't we ultimately decide?
Zap.
Zappy.
That's too much on that one.
I'm sorry. Pull it back. This is a family show.
Zap.
Guys, Week 9 is wrapping up, at least a 4 p.m. slate of games. We've still got 2 more games left, Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football, but we've already had another crazy week. JL, we said it this morning. We think we're figuring out what's happening in the NFL, and then we don't.
Boom.
And then more things happen. Then the Jets beat the Bills or something hypothetical like that. But we're going to break down all of these games for you guys. Before we get into those games, start talking about the action that went down today, a couple of reminders. First and foremost, if you're watching this, thank you so much for tuning in on this Sunday evening. If you enjoy what you're seeing here, if you like what we do, make sure you hit that like button on Facebook or on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to FanDuel. They're at FanDuel. Then make sure you're checking them out across all other social platforms. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, at FanDuel, everywhere. A whole team of killer content creators helping you guys win some money and win your leagues. Make the best moves going forward. Let's get right into it, boys. We've got 2 games currently going on. The Arizona Cardinals-Seattle Seahawks game is currently in the fourth quarter. They just hit that 2-minute warning. The Seahawks up 31-21. What have we seen from this game so far today?
This game has been pretty interesting so far. We got Geno Smith slinging the ball. The Seattle Seahawks, most of the game Arizona has kept with Seattle, but Seattle has begun to break away from them. So it's a pretty interesting game so far. We got Geno Smith, who's thrown 26 completions on 34 attempts for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, 22 fantasy points. Geno Smith has looked decent. He looked decent in this game. Kenneth Walker, 30.9 fantasy points so far, 26 carries for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Bad man.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker is the guy. He's the guy. Are you guys starting him no matter what? Is he a must start every week?
Absolutely. Locked in RB1 rest of the season. No question.
Yeah, I think he's in that top 12 range. There aren't very many backs with the workload that he has, right? And with the security in the backfield, when you look at the names behind him, Kenneth Walker's a full go every single week.
Kenneth Walker or Travis Etienne rest of the season?
Travis Etienne. It's the receiving upside for Travis Etienne that's going to push him slightly over Kenneth Walker. But the real answer is both of these guys, right? You're going to be thrilled with either one of these young running backs on your team, but that receiving work and the explosive playability of Travis Etienne is just going to edge him slightly above Kenneth Walker. It's a little bit of a tie break.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go Etienne. And one of the main things for me is, at best, Kenneth Walker is going to be the third option on this team. You know, you've got DK Metcalf, you got Tyler Lockett. You know, there's plenty of guys who are going to get targets before him, like you said, Simon. Travis Etienne could be the number 1 option on the Jaguars, especially with the relationship with T-Law. So, yeah, got to go T-Law, and Etienne, and it's not hate on Kenneth Walker by any means whatsoever. I would be more than happy with either of them.
We got some We Love Geno in the chat. DK Metcalf also had a pretty decent game. 5 receptions on 6 targets, 37 yards, and a touchdown. DK Metcalf is back, ladies and gentlemen. Tyler Lockett also had a pretty good game. 5 receptions, 5 targets, 17.7 fantasy points. I guess this game is still going on, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, we still got 2 minutes on. I keep saying had a good game, but it is still going on. It is close. That's all I got for this game.
Yeah. On DK Metcalf, I just want to say, I'm so happy seeing him succeed. I feel like last year, people were very down on him based on expectations, but he still had a pretty good fantasy year last year. He finished with 12 touchdowns, but the expectations were just so high that it was disappointing. This year, came in with almost no expectations with Geno Smith taking over at quarterback. People counted the Seahawks offense out, saying this is not going to be a functional offense. Well, it's more than functional. Geno Smith is more than capable of supporting DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And man, that's been exciting to watch for both of those receivers and for Geno Smith.
Yeah, he was one of the best values. I mean, people were just completely fading him. He was going well behind, the likes of Allen Robinson. I'll look up the exact ADP, but man,
yeah,
DK
nobody was
Metcalf,
expecting Geno Smith.
Yeah, exactly. Myself included.
Lesson learned from that. Do you maybe value talent a little bit more whenever there's uncertainty in these offensive situations? Like DK Metcalf, we know his talent. The situation was uncertain, and that's why he slipped in drafts. Going into next draft season, are you taking any lessons from this, or is this a one-off scenario and Geno and DK just lit it up together?
I think it's just a bad outcome if you faded these guys, but let's say Drew Lock gets the start instead of Geno Smith. Like, this season could have gone either way. And so, looking back on it and saying, can we predict really Geno Smith's breakout? Yeah, maybe we could have. I think a lot of the concern was small sample size, right? And just in a large career of not mediocre talent. So I think the process was right. I think the outcome was just different, and we adjust to that.
It's something I'm making a note of because every year these are the things I struggle with. Like, you look at the mistakes you made in the offseason whenever you were looking at players, and then you want to learn from those going into next year, but you want to make sure not to take like anecdotal or one-off stories and then apply them broadly. But at the same time, you want to make sure you're learning from the things you did wrong in the offseason. And I missed on DK Metcalf. So I'm trying to navigate. Is this something I can learn from, or is this just we could not see this coming?
What I like to do at the end of every season is right after championship week, I make notes for myself for that exact reason, because you think, oh yeah, I'll remember this. And then the next season comes and you make the same mistakes over and over again. And I vividly remember last year, I made notes that matchups matter. And then, looking at the playoff matchups where I had one player who just went off because it was a good matchup. I think it was like Amon-Ra St. Brown or somebody. And then I said, unless they don't. And then it was a player who had a fantastic matchup, a stud, and just fell flat on their face. So it's one of those things you just kind of got to roll with, but, keep note of.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. This Los Angeles Rams Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. If you see me glance at my head this way, I am enthralled by what's going on down here in the fourth quarter. But we're going to get to that. First, I wanted to say hey to everyone in the chat. Albert, what's up, my man? Welcome in. Glad to have you here. And we got Mark in the chat as well. Welcome in, Mark. Glad to have you. And Geek Hippie, Geek.
Up,
welcome in. Bam had a question for us. What's up, Bam? Bam said, moving to 7-2 this week. Congratulations. Nice record. Said, looking to sell big on Curtis Samuel before the trade deadline. Look to maybe move him and Singletary. What do you guys think that could get me? So, Jay, when you look at Curtis Samuel and Devin Singletary, is there a range of players that you're looking to target if you're packaging those two guys together?
Yeah, probably. Trying to think. You're looking for high-end RB2. You're not going to get an RB1 for those guys unless there's somebody who's just absolutely desperate for any production from the wide receiver position. You know what? Maybe a disappointing guy like somebody who's playing right now, a Leonard Fournette who really has not looked good as of late. Maybe somebody who was expected to be a RB1 on the season that just kind of fell back. Maybe a Najee Harris, somebody who I think if you're moving on from a guy like Singletary, who's a solid RB2, you're looking for upside with a move like that.
For me, I'm with you, Jay. And Bam, these questions are a little bit harder to answer because we don't know what your teammates' rosters look like. But in that range, like a Miles Sanders is a name that I'm looking at that I think you could upgrade at the running back position. I think people still sleep on him. Dale, any other names, maybe a wide receiver that you would be looking to grab if you were looking at Singletary and Curtis Samuel?
Yeah, I ran these names, just looked at Alex, our good buddy, peaked in high school. He does these market trade value charts every week. And so this doesn't include this week. This was ran from the previous week. Curtis Samuel is tier 7 or 10 trade value points. And what's the other one? It was Devin Singletary. He is tier 6 worth 20 and a half trade value points. So that's around the 30 range if you add those up. And that's right where you guys are talking about. Miles Sanders, Najee Harris. There's Chris Godwin in that range. Tyler Lockett, Debo.
I'd make that move for Chris Godwin if you can.
I would do that as well. Jay, we're so in sync. We're spending too much time in those trade value charts if we just pulled those names out. They're right in that range.
Exactly.
We got some more people in here. Maria says, gentlewoman, welcome in. Thank you for watching us. And we got Matt in the chat. What's up, Matt? Welcome in. Glad to have you here. Geek Hippie said, I got smoked today. Well, you're not the only one.
So did JL by me.
So did Jay by me twice.
But I'm tanking in that league. It doesn't count.
Oh, yeah. But what about the other league?
Well,
there's 2 of them.
My team sucks in that other league. So
there you go.
Dustin in here saying, at least Joey got to see Brady hit 100K. Other than that, this game is not that exciting. But you know what? Being at an NFL game, it doesn't matter if it's a 0-0 snooze fest. It's still just fun being in that environment.
Unless it's raining.
Unless it's
even
raining.
better.
Okay, JL, we say that. My number one sporting experience of my life was in the rain. That Notre Dame Clemson game in the
bring that game
monsoon
up.
was just the most miserable and happy I've ever been at the same time. And that juxtaposition of physically miserable, emotionally happy was just a bizarre sensation that I don't think I'll ever live again.
That game sucked for me. My experience was the complete opposite. I didn't feel well. My friend didn't come that weekend because there was too big of a storm and his parents were nervous. And so I was just sitting there with my other normal friends that I spend every day with. And then it starts raining and I stop feeling good. So I'm like, all right, I'll walk home. So I start walking home thinking, I'll figure out a way to get home. My phone dies. I had to walk 3 miles in the rain back to my apartment. I get there. I realize I don't have a key. I'm locked out. And so I just had to sit outside my door for 2 hours until my roommate came. Soaking wet, phone dead, worst night ever.
Beautiful. Just a beautiful
That's my
experience.
TED Talk.
JL, it's in jail's underselling rain. I legitimately walked through a field where the mud went up to my knees on the way home that day. It was flooding in the streets. There were cars couldn't pass because there was water above the curb. It was absurd. Guys, also Dustin said, boo JL for shaving. Come on, JL.
Oh, yeah.
Boo.
Sorry. Too nice.
Aiden in here, another question for us, a trade question. Wanted to know, should I trade Jonathan Taylor for Josh Jacobs? Full PPR. JL, would you trade away JT for Josh Jacobs?
Probably now. Yeah, I would. Just given the injury concerns, if I could swap that risk, sure.
Jay, what about you? Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And Joey's the one who said it when JT got the injury earlier in the year when it was a high ankle sprain. These things linger. This offense does not look good. It's going to be towards the end of the season. It might be too late for him to even really contribute to your fantasy team before he's back to normal. And who knows, if they continue to not look that good, maybe they shut him down. So yeah, I would make that move.
You might even just on name value alone, especially with Jacobs underperforming the last 2 weeks, 11.4 points this week, somewhere in the 7 to 8 range last week. Might be able to get a little bit extra on top of there for Jacobs. Either way, I'm doing this move.
What back end wide receiver 2 throw on there or something like that. I like
maybe
that
you get
idea.
a Darnell Mooney or something like that thrown onto this trade, something in that
not
range.
After today.
Maybe not. Slick Vic in here. What's up, Slick Vic? Welcome in. Glad to have you in here. And Geek said makes JL look younger now without the fuzz. Was that your goal, JL, to take a couple years off?
No, this is what I've had my whole life. It's just the last 2 weeks I had a beard. Just to see what it
just done with it. Just got too itchy, too much.
I saw what it looked like. I got what I wanted out of it. That was the whole point. It was just to see what I would look like, and I got the gist.
Maria tell you said get rid of it? Is that what it was?
No, I was ready.
JL was complaining about it every second of every day while he had that beard. So I understand you getting rid of it. Guys, let's move on to our next game. Less than 2 minutes left in this one. The Rams are up 13-9. Buccaneers have the ball with 1:57 left. Not a lot of offense in this game so far, or at least offensive scoring.
Yeah, not a lot of touchdowns in a game that, two teams that are struggling that were expected to be Super Bowl contenders. Matthew Stafford, 158 yards, 1 touchdown to who else but Cooper Kupp. He's really the only receiver doing anything honestly, on either side of the ball. 8 targets, 7 catches, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Allen Robinson continues to disappoint. He's somebody who I was super high on going into the season, like JL we were talking about before we started. I've got so much Allen Robinson, and it's been a huge disappointment. Rushing the ball, there's really nothing to write home about. Darrell Henderson, 10 carries, 55 yards. Leonard Fournette continues to disappoint. Only 9 carries for 19 yards. Actually getting outproduced by Rachaad White. 8 carries, 27 yards. He's somebody that I think you should be looking to acquire. He's available of a decent amount of leagues. And, as the season goes along, rookie running backs tend to produce a little better, getting their feet under them. I think he's somebody who could be a sneaky flex play. Sometime, if anything were to happen to Leonard Fournette, he would get the bell cow work. So he's somebody who I would keep your eye out for.
I'm with you. Rachaad White's, if he's not already rostered, he should be rostered in every single league. He has a role. This is still Leonard Fournette's backfield. I still think Leonard Fournette's the lead back rest of season, but Rachaad White has proven that he's a valuable asset to this team. I'm with you, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely. And Albert's asking, what are we doing with Leonard Fournette? Honestly, I wouldn't sell low. I mean, if somebody's willing to take him at name value for a high-end RB2, I'd make the move, but I would prefer to not sell low. I think he's still, like you said, I do think this is still his backfield. And once this offense gets going, which I do believe before the end of the season, they'll get everything under control and look, might not be, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense of the past 2 years, but they'll be better than this. And I think he can definitely put up what he has in the previous 2 seasons.
Absolutely. I agree. Keep starting him. I know it sucks. There's been bad weeks, but you got to just keep starting Leonard Fournette, unless you have like a Josh Jacobs and a CMC on your lineup, right? Or a Kenneth Walker and a Travis Etienne.
I was going to say, if you were stashing Ramondre Stevenson, Kenneth Walker, then, I mean, you would have to consider starting those guys over Lenny till he gets it back going, but I wouldn't sell low. I'd hang on to him.
You've seen Leonard be used here in the passing game too, and just in this game, 4 receptions on 6 targets, 37 yards, and that's valuable in a PPR league. 4 receptions in a week, that's solid.
And Matt's saying he loves Fournette. I'm a Fournette fan as well, my friend. You got to just stay the course. I was about to say stay the ship.
Stay the ship,
guys. Just stay the ship.
That's pretty much it for this game.
For now, we'll keep you guys updated on the results of this game. This game will be wrapping up. But before we start hitting Sunday Night Football, there were unfortunately some injuries today. Jay, you want to update us on the injuries that took place around the NFL today?
Yeah, there weren't a whole lot, thankfully, that had a fantasy impact, but there were a couple of big ones. Aaron Jones left the game in Green Bay with a very noticeable limp and with a grimace in the locker room post-game. He was wearing a boot after and did not return to the game, so I would not be surprised to see him miss an extended period of time, a couple of games. Still waiting on word on exactly what the injury is. And in the same game, Romeo Doubs was ruled out with an ankle injury. He actually suffered the injury on Green Bay's first drive and had to be carted off the field. So I would not be surprised to see him miss some time as well. And the only other one that was really that fantasy relevant, Evan Ingram left the game. I know Coop had to be upset with that, with a back injury, and did not return.
Hopefully Evan Ingram's all right. And Jay, did you say Aaron Jones was in the locker room with a grimace or with the grimace?
Yeah, that changes the sentence.
Both. He was grimacing with grimace.
Well, that is not a good sign if grimace was in there. Was the Hamburglar anywhere to be seen, or just grimace on his own?
Just grimace, and Mayor McCheese was there. He was consoling him.
Okay.
Yeah.
God, man, Mayor McCheese, that's not good news.
When they call out Mayor McCheese, it's not a good sign.
Guys, tonight we have a game, Tennessee Titans at the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you've been keeping up with these lines today, you will have seen in the past hour that it's moved a little bit further in Kansas City's favor. And that's because the Tennessee Titans officially announced that Ryan Tannehill is not active for this game, and Malik Willis will be getting the start again. So before we go any further into this game, guys, Malik Willis threw for barely over 50 passing yards in his last game. Jay, when Malik Willis is the starting quarterback, can you start any pass catcher for the Titans?
No, honestly, you can't. Even Robert Woods hasn't done much, even with Ryan Tannehill under center. Now, granted, in Malik Willis's first start, Derrick Henry was able to run the ball, and they were winning the game. So it could be a little bit of a different story tonight against Kansas City, where they are forced to air it out, but you can't start any of these guys with any confidence. The only one, if Treylon Burks was playing, maybe, because he's the type of guy that can make your day with one play, but I'm not starting any Tennessee pass catchers. Honestly, any Tennessee players outside of Derrick Henry, but I also like Dontrell Hilliard, who could have a sneaky good day, if Malik Willis winds up dumping the ball off a lot as they're playing catch up, but no wide receivers on this team.
I see Dustin in here saying if I'm starting anyone, it's Nick Westbrook-Ikine. JL, do you have any interest in Westbrook-Ikine this week, or if Malik Willis is starting, it's hands off entirely?
If you need to play him, if it's his emergency type situation, bye week fill in, I'm fine playing Westbrook-Ikine, but I am not excited to. Malik Willis may end up just getting shut down tonight.
Yeah, I don't know if he can support any relevant fantasy pass catchers. I've seen nothing from him so far to think that that's the case. It's Derrick Henry, and this is the Derrick Henrys versus the Kansas City Chiefs is what I think we're going to see tonight. On the other side of the ball, this is a great matchup for the Chiefs, though, specifically with what they're good at. The Titans are giving up the 8th most points to opposing fantasy quarterbacks this season, the 4th most points against opposing fantasy wide receivers, and on the other side, they are the 4th best against opposing fantasy running backs. So this looks like it's going to be a pass-heavy game for Kansas City, even though they are heavy favorites as well, just based on the matchups. Dale, are any of the Kansas City running backs startable tonight? We're looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon. Do you have any confidence starting any of those guys in your lineups?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a few leagues. I'm starting Pacheco in a few leagues. I'm not starting Jerick McKinnon. I'm benching Jerick McKinnon in all my leagues. But I think either of those two guys are worthy of a play this week, flex-worthy play.
Jay, what are your expectations for those backs? With a tough matchup and a split backfield, are you looking at RB3 numbers, RB2 numbers?
I'm forced to start CEH in a couple places as well as an RB2 because of bye weeks. But yeah, you're looking at flex play. You're looking at flex numbers, RB3 numbers. Honestly, for both of them, you're hoping you get in the end zone because they're, like you said, this is pretty much a split backfield. And I honestly think you're going to see Kadarius Toney get some action out of the backfield. McCole Hardman's getting used out of the backfield a little bit. So yeah, you're praying for a touchdown with these guys.
If you're only rostering one of these running backs rest of season, Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which one do you want it to be?
I'm still going CEH. I like Pacheco long term, but I still think that CEH, when he's gotten the volume, he's looked pretty decent this year. And they still like him. They're still using him, even though Pacheco got the start last week. CEH still scored the touchdown. He's getting a little bit of usage in the passing game as well. So I'm going to still stick with CEH.
We just got an update from Dustin, said pass interference in the end zone, 13 seconds left. You're a little bit ahead of me, only 3 seconds ahead of me, but that's enough for a game-changing call. Man, Tom Brady and the Bucs just might pull this one out here at the end. We'll keep our eyes on that. Now that we've talked about the Chiefs running backs, I wanted to talk about where the strength of this team is, at least in this matchup tonight. That is in the wide receiver core. Obviously, the top receiver, Travis Kelce. He is a tight end, but you're plugging Travis Kelce, and there's hardly any questions we have to ask about that, man. He's in every single week start. But that wide receiver room is a little bit confusing, and it's gotten more confusing over the past week with the addition of Kadarius Toney. There's Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. What do we do with these wide receivers? I'm confident in Juju Smith-Schuster tonight. That's the one player I have confidence in. But after that, I'm not sure who the next guy up is. Jay, if you had to plug in one of the secondary wide receivers, who would it be?
I would probably go. The smart play is MVS, but I've just got this feeling that they're going to use Toney. I think that they want to show that he's Andy Reid coming out of the bye is just a mastermind, and I think they want to show what Toney is capable of. Can you pull out the what are the odds for the anytime touchdown score for Kadarius Toney? I think that's one that's worth a shot, especially if it's some pretty decent odds.
Plus 420.
That's not as good as I would have hoped, but I would take a shot
on that one.
Yeah. And the Buccaneers did just take the lead with 9 seconds left, 16-13.
A touchdown to Cade Otton.
Just like we all wrote it up.
Just like we all wrote it up. Cade Otton with the touchdown to potentially win that game, to potentially pull that game out. Dale, whenever we're looking at these secondary receiving options, it sounds like Jay's a fan of Kadarius Toney tonight. Is there one that you have more confidence starting than the others? MVS, Mecole Hardman, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore?
Yeah, I would probably be starting. I'd probably be starting MVS at all those guys. The usage is there for him. He's playing 74% of snaps. He's getting 15% target share. He's the number 2 option here consistently on this offense. So I would rather have him.
Yeah. For me, it's going to be MVS is the guy that I'm most confident in after that. And I think tonight in this game, there's going to be room for multiple of these wide receivers to put up good numbers. I think you'll see 2 of these guys with good fantasy games tonight, plus Travis Kelce, of course. But that does it for our Sunday night football game, guys. Let's go ahead and move into this 1 p.m. slate of games. There was a lot of chaotic energy throughout the league today. A lot of teams underperforming, some teams superiorly overperforming. You know the word superiorly?
Superiorly.
Right.
Superiorly overperforming. The Green Bay Packers were not one of those teams that overperformed this week, losing to the Detroit Lions 15-9.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a get right game for the Green Bay offense, and it was quite the opposite. The Detroit defense has struggled most of this season, so a lot of people were and traditionally Aaron Rodgers has done really well against divisional opponents. Not today. He continues to struggle in life without Devontae Adams. He only threw for 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 2 of them in the end zone. It was ugly. He did not look good. He has not thrown for 300 yards in a single game this season, has not thrown for more than 2 touchdowns in a single game. Are you starting Rodgers next week against Dallas? I mean, they got one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, give up the 7th fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Simon, are you starting Rodgers next week?
I mean, cop-out answer, depends on my other options, right? But whenever I look at the options that are likely available, I'd rather start a Justin Fields. I'd rather start a Trevor Lawrence. I'd rather start
Geno Smith.
Cousins. If he's sitting out there, I'd rather start Geno Smith. So like Aaron Rodgers, I think is startable. Know what I mean? Like you can plug him in, but he is no longer a plug and play every single week starter. He's a guy that I'm plugging in if it's a good matchup and I don't have a better option.
JL, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with Simon. He has been a QB2 through and throughout the season, which isn't fantastic. It is really bad in 1 QB leagues, right? Because you want to be starting one of those top 12 or however big your league is. You want to be at least starting one of those top players. So not great for Aaron Rodgers. Super flex, he's fine. He's a fine second option, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. 1 QB, I'm not starting him super flex. If I've got one of those options, like you said, Simon, the Geno Smiths, the Justin Fields, I would much rather not start him against this very tough Dallas defense. On the other side of the ball, Jared Goff had a mediocre day, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Started the season off pretty hot, but it really has just been hit or miss since then. It's really pretty much just a super flex matchup play. That's pretty much it. You're not looking to start him in 1 QB leagues. Rodgers led the Packers in rushing, which is not a good sign, with 40 yards. And like I said earlier, Aaron Jones left the game with an injury after rushing for just 25 yards, and it does not look good. I'm expecting him to miss some time. That is not official, but with the talk of him hanging out with Grimace and Mayor McCheese after the game, having a boot on, it does not look good. A.J. Dillon really didn't look good either. He only averaged 3.1 yards per carry, and he got stopped at the goal line multiple times. He's been a big disappointment this season. He was really hyped up in this offseason as somebody who you could draft as a potential RB2 who could make that leap. But he is in line for the bulk of the carries in Green Bay if Aaron Jones does miss extended time. If Jones is out, are you guys starting Dillon next week against Dallas, who gives up the 3rd fewest fantasy points against running backs?
Yeah, I'd still be playing him. If he is the only guy in that backfield, that's enough volume for me to take that shot, even in a tough matchup.
Yeah, I mean, this Packers offense is broken. Like it's just broken. It's not working. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the running backs, if you're looking at the receiving options, the quarterback play, it's just not working. So expectations are a lot lower for A.J. Dillon or for any piece in this offense whenever I plug them in. That being said, you can't ignore volume, and he's going to get volume if Aaron Jones is out. So he's a play, but not a must play.
Right. You guys said it perfect. I think it's the expectations. You have to expect, mid-range RB2, if he gets a touchdown, maybe high-end RB2. But, if this was the offense of last year and A.J. Dillon was getting all the carries, I mean, he'd be hyped up as the RB1 potentially. So you just have to reset those expectations, and volume is king in fantasy. Give me the guy that's going to be getting those touches. DeAndre Swift only had 2 carries as the Lions continue to monitor his usage. Honestly, until he's given the full okay, I have a hard time starting DeAndre Swift. I don't know why they just don't sit him, especially as good as Jamal Williams has looked. He wasn't that efficient, but he did get 81 yards and he chipped in a 2-point conversion. on the receiver side for both of these teams, Alan Lazard led the way. 4 catches on 10 targets, 87 yards and a touchdown. But outside of Lazard, Rodgers really spread the ball around. No other player receiving more than 5 targets. Many were expecting a big game out of Big Bob Tunyon because the Lions have struggled this season so far against the tight end, but he only managed 3 catches for 29 yards. Honestly, he's just not on the field enough. And as I saw, our guy Coop is the tight end guru. He said he just doesn't play enough snaps. He's really nothing more than a streamer in the right matchup.
You're praying for a touchdown from Big Buns Tunyon.
He is
Big Buns Tunyon.
He is in the glob.
Also, we got Joey Wright in here saying Buccaneers win. He was at the game in the suite. Man,
that's awesome.
What a fun game to be at for a Bucs fan.
For real.
With some more people in here. JL, I think Come Here Now is excited to see you.
So JL.
Yo. And then I'm pretty sure this is Hi L. J-A-I, like pronounce them like Hi.
What's up? What's up?
Now your name's just L. What's up,
cool
Come Here Now? Welcome in. Also, Matthew came in here earlier and saying his morning slate teaser parlay lost, and the only part of the parlay that didn't hit was Green Bay not covering plus 2.5 to the freaking Lions. That is brutal.
That is brutal.
That is absolutely brutal.
You were so confident you had that locked up.
God, yeah, that one hurts. That one's a punch right in the nards. Sorry, Jay, I cut you off right in the middle.
You're good. There's honestly nothing really much else to talk about on the receiving side of the ball for the Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown continued to dominate targets. He only had 4 catches for 55 yards, but there wasn't a lot of passing volume, especially with TJ Hawkinson gone. He's going to continue to eat, have plenty of volume, is locked in as an every week starter.
Yeah, not the most exciting game for him, but you got to keep starting him week in, week out. There's better games to come for him. Guys, next game I wanted to talk about here was this Atlanta Falcons Los Angeles Chargers game. The Chargers coming away with a last-second victory off a game-winning field goal to cap off a crazy ending to a game. If you guys did not catch the end to this game, with about 46 seconds left, the Chargers fumbled the ball. Atlanta recovered, and then Atlanta fumbled the ball, giving the ball back to the Chargers in one play. The Chargers then kick the game-winning field goal as time expires to win this one. The Falcons just fumbled it away at 17-17 after recovering that fumble. It's got to be brutal if you're a Falcons fan to end a game that way. But overall, these Falcons have been overperforming what my expectations were for them in this offseason. I think the highlight of this game, though, we'll start on the Atlanta side, was the return of Cordarrelle Patterson. Patterson had 13 carries for 44 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Could have had a third one. I know I was saying not to start him this week because I wanted to see him on the field. Well, now I've seen him on the field. You start him every week. Cordarrelle Patterson is an every single week starter. Jay, do you agree?
No, you're not going to like this, Simon. I think he's a sell high. I mean, yes, he did get the 2 touchdowns, but if you look outside of that, 3.4 yards per carry, really didn't get a ton of usage in the receiving game, which is what his value was last season. There's 2 other capable running backs, Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley. I would be looking to sell high. I know it might be a little controversial. If you have him, you're starting him, no doubt. But I don't think he's going to be able to hold up. I think you're going to see some more usage out of these other running backs. And if he didn't have those touchdowns, it would not be a very pretty day.
Justin agrees with you, saying Algier is outplaying CPAT. Guys, before we continue on this game, we have our on-site reporter live from Raymond James Stadium. Joey Wright, how does it feel there as a Buccaneers fan?
Whoa, Buck win, baby!
I was told that you have Tom Brady ready for questioning. Is that true?
I did. I'm going down on the field with him here in a few minutes. We're going to have an interview with me and Tom. We're going to just Indian South 50-yard line and talk about our feelings, honestly. It was a pretty dull game, to be honest with you, up until like about the last, minute. But good time out here at Raymond James Stadium. Yeah. How's it going there, guys? I didn't do any work tonight.
Beautiful. We're talking Falcons. We finished talking about that Bucs game, and as soon as they scored that game-winning touchdown, I was thinking, oh man, Joey is living high right now. He is so excited. Joey, Thank you for checking in with us. I know you're living in the heat of the moment. Go
Oh.
rush that field. Let us know how the interview with Tom goes, my man, and go Bucks.
Bye. Go Bucks, guys.
Peace.
Go Bucks. Man, I'm jealous that he's there right now.
That's
That's
the
so
second
much
time
fun.
today
That was
that
so
you've
fun.
just cut him off right in the middle of a statement.
He was
Cut him off
waving. He
earlier
was
today.
Not the
waving
first
goodbye
time,
to
not
me.
the
Yeah, but
last time.
He said, "Go Buck," and then it's like out. I love it.
Well, now
Probably
we don't
said
know.
butts.
Or buns.
Go Buns.
Or butter.
Butts.
We know he's a big
He
butter
was
fan.
saying, "Go Rick Butts" is what it was.
As the receivers on the Falcons side of the ball, Kyle Pitts continuing to be targeted more than he was through the first couple weeks of the season, but he didn't turn his 7 targets into much today. 2 receptions for 27 yards. We've talked about him maybe separating himself from that tight end glob, the glob of just streaming tight ends that aren't quite getting enough to be useful every week, but you're still starting them in certain situations. Jay, do you think Kyle Pitts, even with this weak performance, is still separated from that glob of tight ends, or is he right back in there with the glob?
I think he's in the glob with the volume that you're seeing from the passing game. You can't depend on him week in and week out. 23 attempts this week until they potentially move to Desmond Ridder. You really can't trust Kyle Pitts outside of the glob. He's firmly in there. Him and Drake London both got 7 targets. They looked to Drake London. I watched a lot of this game. Drake London got a couple of red zone targets. They're definitely looking to get him the ball when they were inside the 20. I mean, I think that you're encouraged by the volume of targets, but you can't be confident starting Kyle Pitts.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to move to the other side of this ball now. On the Chargers side of the ball, Austin Eckler continuing to show why he's one of the top fantasy running backs. Dude had a touchdown on the ground and a touchdown through the air, turning 14 carries and only 47 yards, but it doesn't matter whenever you score 2 touchdowns. And then turning 9 targets into 7 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown as well. We're starting Austin Eckler week in, week out, right? No questions asked. He's just in the lineup.
Got to. Yep.
100%.
Did you guys see the play? Did you see the play?
That's what I was about to go to. Yep.
It was so close. It was one elbow away from being like the second best play of the year besides that PJ Moore to DJ Moore pass where he got tackled. He somehow keeps his legs in the air as he's rolling and has the wherewithal to take off down the field. I was jumping out of my seat thinking that he actually pulled that off.
I still think he had it, even though the elbow was down. They should have just gave it to him for the
the
wherewithal.
elbow was down.
Yeah, this elbow was down.
I still think he had it,
anyways.
even though he didn't.
Even though he did not.
It was awful.
Even though he absolutely did not.
He didn't have it, but he had it.
That was a crazy play. And yeah, it didn't turn out to be the play, but still, the fact that he was close to it is insane.
Absolutely insane. Austin Eckler's a beast. As the wide receiver that was a popular start this week with both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen out, worked out for everybody that started him. Joshua Palmer saw 10 targets, turning into 8 receptions for 106 yards. Now, Keenan Allen will likely be back sooner rather than later. He was questionable for this week. I'm expecting him back in the next week or 2 for Keenan Allen. JL, when Keenan Allen comes back, but Mike Williams is still out, what does that do to Joshua Palmer's value? Is he still startable in fantasy?
Yeah, I think he is. So I think he'll fill in that wide receiver 2 role that Mike Williams currently fills until Mike Williams gets back, in which case you're probably not starting Joshua Palmer. It feels like this offense is pretty comfortable with Eckler in these 2 wide receiver volume.
Absolutely. Eckler getting those 9 targets. He was the second leading receiver from a targets perspective on the team. I think you're right, JL. And it's promising looking at how they use their second wide receiver, right? Michael Bandy with 8 targets, DeAndre Carter with 6 targets. I don't think it's going to be a problem for Joshua Palmer when Allen's back. He's still going to be pretty heavily targeted in this offense.
Yeah, I think this offense is only going to look better too. Like Simon, you and I have talked about it a few times with Herbert disappointing in the past few weeks. He's getting healthy, coming off that bye. He had that rib injury earlier in the year. I think they're going to look better and better. And I think that, even with Mike Williams, whenever he's back, I think Palmer can be a solid flex play.
Travis in here saying, so glad I played Palmer over Davis this week. Good move, my man. Nice job, Travis.
Absolutely.
That's all I got for this game, guys. The next game that I wanted to hit on was the Indianapolis Colts at New England Patriots game. The Patriots winning this one pretty big. The Colts weren't able to get much going, 26-3.
26-3. The spread on this game was -5 in favor of New England, and the total was at 40. They did not hit that over. It was the under, and New England did cover here. This game was pretty ugly, guys. This game was pretty ugly. On the Colts side, Sam Ehlinger, 15 completions, 29 attempts, 103 yards, 7 fantasy points. I'm pretty sure he didn't even have a completion until the second quarter of this game. The Patriots defense just had his number from the start, made every single wide receiver option on this Colts team fantasy irrelevant. The highest scoring receiver on this team was Jordan Wilkins, 6.8 fantasy points. Then you had Deion Jackson, 5.6, Michael Pittman, 5.2, Paris Campbell, 3.6, and Alec Pierce, 3.3.
Wait, did you say the highest scoring fantasy player for the Colts in its entirety was below 7 points today?
Was 7. Well, Sam Ehlinger had 7.02, and he was the highest scoring.
That's absurd. That is absolutely absurd. God.
So the answer to all of the start-sit questions that included the Colts was none of them.
The defense actually did pretty good. Had a couple picks.
There you go. The defense.
Sacks.
I don't think we got any Colts defense questions, though. Not so good. Not so good. What are you guys doing with Michael Pittman rest of the season and these other wide receiver options as well? This is not great for him. How do you view them rest of the season?
Massive downgrade if Sam Ehlinger is going to keep on starting at quarterback. Like, I'm not even sure you can consistently rely on any of these guys, Michael Pittman included, to put up wide receiver 2 numbers with Sam Ehlinger under center. That being said, this is a tougher matchup defensively, so there's going to be better weeks ahead for some of these players, but it's a wide receiver 2 without that floor, without any sort of safety in it, in my mind. It's a very risky wide receiver 2 play for Michael Pittman.
Honestly, not much of a ceiling either. I mean, it's not like Ehlinger is going to go out there and air it out. So I would be looking to sit Pittman if possible until something changes with this offense. Definitely not dropping him. He's too talented for that. But, he was in talks to be a wide receiver 1, and I think he nailed it, Simon. I think he's wide receiver 3 territory that you're only really looking to play in the right starts and the good matchups until we see something different. I know they said Ehlinger was going to start the rest of the season, but if he looks this bad again, I would not be surprised to see Matt Ryan back out there.
Dustin has the grossest question of all time for us. Let's just assume both of these guys are the starter rest of the year, okay? I don't think that's the case for Malik Willis. Ryan Tannehill is going to come back and take that job. But assuming they both start, who would you want rest of the season, Ehlinger or Malik Willis for fantasy?
Do I have to?
I think you just got to take the rushing yards of Willis and call it a day. Know what I mean? I think that's what you got to do. Just grab the rushing yards. If he gets 60 rushing yards in a game, that's a touchdown, and you're rolling with it.
And I think Malik Willis is a lot more talented. I think he's the more raw prospect, but I think he could be a starter week in, week out in this league eventually. If he starts to put it together, if he gets consecutive starts. So yeah, I'm going Malik Willis.
10 passing attempts last week, 6 completions. 1 interception.
Bad.
1.4 fantasy points.
Hot.
Yeesh.
Also, Dustin, you saying, I think Simon is right on. Appreciate it, Dustin. And Adrian saying, greetings from Mexico. Greetings, Adrian.
Greetings.
What else we have going on in this game, John Luke?
So this game, sorry, I got distracted there by the greetings from Mexico. Yes, so Deion Jackson, 11 carries for 23 yards. Simon, you were very hyped on Deion Jackson this morning when we were discussing him. What did you see in this game? How are you viewing him going forward? Was this just a Belichick shutdown, or can we expect something out of Deion Jackson if Jonathan Taylor still misses?
I mean, if by hyped you mean benching him in favor of comparable running backs because he had a really tough matchup, then yeah, I was super hyped on Deion Jackson this morning. Deion Jackson was startable this week, but when Jonathan Taylor's out, you keep starting him, right? Especially if Sam Ehlinger is going to be starting a quarterback. Most games, hopefully they won't be down 23 points at the end there, and they're going to be able to establish that running game a little bit more. He's good. He's not Jonathan Taylor, but with volume, it's hard to avoid starting players that have a starting running back job in the NFL, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And then on the Patriots side of this, really, this kind of went as you'd expect for the Patriots. 9.68 fantasy points for Mac Jones. Ramondre Stevenson had a fantastic game, 15 carries for 60 yards. He also had 7 targets, 3 receptions, and 10 yards, and a receiving touchdown in this game for 16
It was a
fantasy
beauty
points.
too. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was a one-handed coming
Yeah.
across the end zone. It was a sexy catch.
Yes,
Got me all hot
Ramondre
and bothered.
Stevenson. Got you all hot and bothered. Well, Ramondre Stevenson, fantastic. While Damian Harris is out, what do you guys expect from Ramondre Stevenson rest of the season? Where does he slot in with this whole Damian Harris situation?
I think the Rhinos secured this backfield as his. I think he is the RB1. I mean, look at this game. It's not like there weren't other backs involved. JJ Taylor getting 10 carries in this game. And I think we'll see JJ Taylor get 0 carries whenever Damian Harris is back, and Damian Harris grabs those 10. But Ramondre Stevenson, never going to be the 25 carry guy whenever Damian Harris is healthy, but we'll see him continuously probably in this 13 to 20 carry range with Damian Harris being the supplementary back. I think he's an RB1. He's a beast.
Very good. He's very good. And then on the receiving side, Hunter Henry, 9 points, fantasy points this week. He had 4 receptions, 4 targets for 50 yards. It's kind of what you expect. He's still in the glob. It's not really much to say there. And Jacoby Myers, 8.4 fantasy points. Dear God.
That's the noise of the glob. That was the noise of the glob.
I got that. But yeah, that's it for this game.
What we got in this game, guys. Before we move on to our next game, we have some questions in here. A tough one from Caden. Caden is up by how many points is that? 40 points against the 8-0 team in his league. The team he's going up against has Lamar Jackson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Taysom Hill. He has Derrick Henry left. So he's up 40 with Derrick Henry going against Lamar, Juju, and Taysom. JL, does Caden pull this one off? He's got a big lead, but he's also going up against some studs.
You are going up against some studs, but you got Derrick Henry, right? You still got Derrick Henry. So I think you pull this one off. I'll give you 70% chance.
Let's call it a 55-point lead, with Derrick Henry. Let's just give him 15 PPR fantasy points. That seems like a reasonable number. I think
you're underselling Derrick Henry.
I'm being conservative here, Jay.
Yeah,
we're giving predictions. Right. You want me to just predict 30 PPR fantasy points for a running back?
I mean, if Joe Mixon got 50-something, Derrick Henry could do it too. So
Joe Mixon, man. Come on.
Just absurd. Absurd what he did. Jay, you giving him the victory?
Yeah. JL nailed it in the 70% range. Outside of Taysom Hill having a random 4-touchdown game like Taysom Hill likes to do, you should have it pretty cleanly.
I mean, but Lamar, any given week, can put up a 40-point quarterback performance. You can see that from Lamar any given week. So that's what you're watching out for. You're hoping Lamar just has an average game.
My thinking was Derrick Henry should at least get close to, if not outscore Juju and Taysom Hill. And Lamar would have to put up a huge game with, he's down Mark Andrews likely, or he is out, down Rashad Bateman. So outside of Lamar just going nuts on the ground, I think he should be okay.
Another Ravens player we had a question about. Come here now, Beach89 wants to know, do you project Kenyon Drake to get 22 PPR fantasy points tomorrow? Jay, do you think 22 PPR fantasy points is in the range of outcomes for Kenyon Drake? How likely is it?
I do, because I have to start him in my home league this week. So I absolutely say 22 points is within the range. No, I don't think so. I think best case scenario, you're looking in the mid-teens. Anything's possible, especially with fantasy football. But I think best case scenario most likely is around that 15 to 18 mark for Kenyon Drake.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. And the next game we're talking about is this Miami-Chicago game. And what a game it was. The Dolphins coming out on top 35-32. And this was a fun one. Probably the most fun game of the day to watch.
Definitely. Tua had himself a day through the air. 302 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. There's really not much to say about Tua. He's locked in as an every week starter, no question, no matter the format. Justin Fields also had himself a day, but it was more on the ground versus through the air. Yes, he did throw 3 touchdowns, 2 to the one and only Cole Kmet. He only threw for 123 passing yards. He did, however, have 178 rushing yards. Yes, 178. Talk about getting you verklempt, my goodness. And a rushing touchdown. Yeah.
I mean, that's the record. He took the record from Michael Vick, right? Michael Vick previously had the record for the most rushing yards in a game by a quarterback. And I'm pretty sure this is an NFL record. Most rushing yards in a game by a quarterback. Justin Fields today.
Did not realize that. I'll have to look that up. But he had a total of 301 offensive yards and 4 total touchdowns. Justin Fields has been on an absolute tear over the past 5 weeks. He's currently ranked QB1 on the week. Guys, is this just a hot streak, or is Justin Fields locked in as an every week starter for the foreseeable future?
I mean, it was an easier matchup. Take that into account. This week's kind of expected a high scoring game, but still that amount of rushing plays, and like Simon has been bringing up, these design rush plays for Justin Fields really give him that upside as a rushing quarterback. So most situations, I think I'm going to be starting him.
People are letting that stank from the first 4 weeks cloud their judgment. This week's going to wash all the stank off. You know what I mean? Anybody that was still doubting it, they're done. But Justin Fields is an every week starter. The first 4 weeks were rough. He didn't finish higher than QB 23 in any of those first 4 weeks. But the past 5 weeks, if we assume QB 1 this week, QB 13, QB 8, QB 5, QB 5, QB 1. And in each of those games, he's had at least 60 rushing yards in 4 of those 5 and above 80 in 3 of those 5 games. Like, the dude's running the ball. It's a cheat code for fantasy. You have to just keep plugging him in there.
That's almost 2 touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns just on the ground. That's why these guys are considered the Konami code QBs. Did you see when he rushed for 1 first down or went into the Dolphin sideline? Mike McDaniels just looked at Justin Fields as he walked by. He said, "Stop doing that." And they were all laughing about it. It was hilarious. You got to look it up. Good. He just looked straight at him. Said, "Stop doing that." Justin Fields was laughing as he was coming off. On the ground, yes, Justin Fields got it done. But for the Dolphins, a little more interesting. Raheem Mostert started the game, but Jeff Wilson Jr. was definitely involved. He matched him in the amount of carries. Both had 9 touches, but Mostert kind of disappointed when it comes to a yards per carry. 2.9 yards per carry for a total of 26 yards. Jeff Wilson averaged 5.7 yards per carry for 51 yards. And yes, Mostert did get the rushing touchdown, but he did not have any catches where Jeff Wilson was involved with 3 catches for 31 yards. You had to choose one of these guys for the rest of the season. Which Dolphins running back would you rather have, Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert?
No, thank you. That's okay, though. Thanks for the offer, Jen.
Really? I wholeheartedly disagree.
I think this is going to be a mess. Like, I think it's going to be difficult to predict who the fantasy running back that scores each week is. And it's going to be a hot hand approach. That's what it looks like we're going to see here. If Jeff Wilson's performing better, they're going to ride him. If Raheem Mostert's hot out there, they're going to keep riding him. It's the lack of predictability to me. I don't see one of these backs separating themselves. And they got Jeff Wilson involved first game back.
Yeah, and that's why I am firmly on the Jeff Wilson side of this. This is his first game on this team, and they're using him. They gave him split carries with Raheem Mostert and more receiving work, which he did something with. He had 3 targets, 3 receptions, 21 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Raheem Mostert had 2 targets, didn't catch a single one of them. Jeff Wilson to me is like, this was a fantastic first impression, and I only expect it to go up from here.
I completely agree with you, JL. I know I don't say that very often, but I do. I think Jeff Wilson's a potential league winner. I said it before this week. I think that it is, even if it is a split backfield, I think he's a more explosive of the 2 players. Mostert has been fine, but I think he's really been more of a volume-based play. I think Jeff Wilson's going to take over this backfield, but even if he doesn't, I think he's a fine play. And if Mostert, who we know has not been able to stay healthy over his career, if he goes down with an injury, Jeff Wilson does see all that volume. I'm looking to acquire him everywhere I can. I think Jeff Wilson Jr. Is a low-risk, high-reward play and somebody I want pretty much everywhere I can get him.
I've got no problem acquiring him, but I am much less optimistic than you guys that there's going to be that level of clarity in this backfield. I think it's going to be very hard to predict week in, week out which one of these guys has the big fantasy game because they're both good backs. We've seen Raheem Mostert have great games this year so far. They're not just going to throw him to the sideline because Jeff Wilson came in and had a decent game on 9 carries. Raheem Mostert's still going to be involved here.
I think when they're with both of them playing, I think you can plug them in as back-end RB2s. And then the one who gets the hot hand or scores the multiple touchdowns, something like that, is the one that you're going to be happy with. Now, I agree with what you're saying. I just think it's worth the risk, especially in this offense.
I feel you. I do like this offense. It's fun to watch.
Absolutely. On the Bears side of the ball, Justin Fields, he had so many yards, there really wasn't much left for any of the other guys. David Montgomery had 14 carries, only 36 yards. Khalil Herbert really didn't get much done on the ground. honestly, I think it's just one of those games. I think they're both where they have been for the past couple of weeks. I think both of them are RB2s. I like Khalil Herbert a lot, especially the way he's looked. David Montgomery did get dinged up, but he returned to the game. Not a whole lot outside of old Cole Kmet getting a couple of carries. That was pretty interesting. Guess they're getting fancy out there. Receiving, I mean, what else can you say about the Dolphins? They got two absolute stud wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They're both firmly wide receiver ones. You know, Jeff Wilson Jr. also caught a passing touchdown. There's really not anybody else on this team for the receivers. Everything's funneled through Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and as good as Tua has looked, I think they're both locked in as wide receiver ones for the rest of the season. What do you guys think?
Wide receiver ones, play them every single week, and this is what you love to see in fantasy: concentrated targets. It's easy to predict where the ball's going to go in Miami. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
The guy that was hyped all offseason, that has disappointed but came back to life, the one and only Mr. Cole Kmet. 6 targets, 5 catches, 41 yards.
He fits that description as well.
You ruined the bit, JL. That was where I was going next with it. You ruined the bit.
Oh, my bad. I didn't read your mind.
Okay. Yeah, you should. Yep, you should have. Anyways, It's okay. It's okay.
Cole start Kmet, over and we'll pretend like we didn't hear it, Jay. Just start the whole bit over.
Just talk faster this time.
I don't even know what I was going to say. Cole Kmet really played well today. 6 catches. Is he somebody you're comfortable starting every week now with Justin Fields playing better, or is it simply a matchup-dependent start?
I think he's still in the glob. What a week for Cole Kmet. Like, you're excited to see this, but I need to see a little bit more consistency from him before he's an every week start. Justin Fields isn't an every week start because we expect him to throw 3 touchdowns every week. He's an every week start because he's going to get you 60 to 80 rushing yards on the ground, and that's a free touchdown plus whatever he does through the air. So I'm not like super bought in to Cole Kmet. I've got more confidence than I did earlier in the season, but he's not an every week plug and play tight end in my eyes. Great game though.
Yeah, I agree with Simon. 6 targets is fantastic to see. Last week he got 2 targets. Before that, he got 3 targets. So like we do have to see some increase in pass volume here. Justin Fields only threw 28 times this game. I'd like to see that increase as well.
The guy who was overhyped at the beginning of the season has disappointed, but turned it on today. One Mr. Darnell Mooney.
Nailed it.
You like that? 8 targets, 7 catches. A little disappointing on the yardage, but he did catch a touchdown. Darnell Mooney, is he somebody you guys are comfortable starting every week, or is this another case of, a game that was just a shootout? One thing, like you said, JL, I'm concerned with the passing volume in this offense, but you got to be excited with what you saw out of Darnell Mooney today.
Yeah, the reason just my last answer.
That was exactly what I was going to do. I was going to repeat word for word what I said for Cole Kmet, but then just plug Darnell Mooney's name in there. It's the same analysis. It's the same thing. It's the same offense. You got us, JL. No, Darnell Mooney, you can play him. You can play him week in, week out, but you're not expecting wide receiver 1 numbers from him, and you're hoping he gets in the end zone.
Chase Claypool did have 6 targets. Any excitement for him long term, or do you think this is just a lost season for him?
Absolutely. I'm excited for him long term.
I mean, Simon? I just don't know how excited you can be for secondary receiving options in Chicago. I still don't think week in, week out they're going to be throwing the ball enough. Well, he said, then the follow-up question was, or is this a lost season for him? So I think he meant long-term as in rest of this year. I'm not excited for him for fantasy rest of the 2022 NFL season. I am excited for him in Dynasty. I think you should go buy low on Chase Claypool. It's promising to see him get 6 targets, but he's not a player I'm thinking you're going to get much fantasy relevancy from rest of this season.
Maybe.
I mean, 6 targets, he could turn it into something. But again, I think you're going to lack consistency from Chase Claypool. Joe, we had some questions come in here before we move on to our next game. Okay. SOS wanted to know thoughts on Swift rest of season. Seems to be getting healthier, but I'd okay. Joe, you were hyping up DeAndre Swift so hard this morning on the morning show. How do you feel about DeAndre Swift rest of the season?
I was hyping DeAndre Swift because you play DeAndre Swift if he's playing. I feel, it definitely worrisome. He only got 2 rushing attempts today for 10 yards. I feel like these injuries are going to linger. So you have to be aware of that. We have to see if he's able to heal as he goes forward. He's got Chicago, the Giants, and then Buffalo the next 3 weeks, which aren't really fantastic matchups. So definitely some worry. Hopefully you have some Jamal Williams behind him.
He's just got to get healthy. He's just got to get healthy, and then he'll be fine. We got Schmid 14 in here. What's up, Schmid? I think this is my cousin. He wanted to know, what are the chances Kamara scores 30.19 points tomorrow? Not to be specific. JL, what do you think the chances are, not specifically, that Kamara scores 30.19 points tomorrow?
I think your chances are pretty low, but you never know. He scored 6 touchdowns in one game before, so do it again here.
I'm not calling for a 30-point game from anybody unless it's Derrick Henry against the Texans. Then I might call for that. But Kamara's in his range of outcomes. He's one of the more likely players to hit 30 points.
If it's PPR, I mean, you got to feel like it's definitely within the realm of possibility.
Absolutely. Grim fan in here said, moving on in the Survivor League. Man, week 10, you must have picked the Seahawks this morning. He was asking us Seahawks or Cardinals. You must have picked the Seahawks. And he wants to pick Atlanta going into next week. Who do the Falcons have in next week's game? They got the Panthers on Thursday night. How are you guys feeling about the Falcons against the Panthers on Thursday night for the next week's Survivor Pool pick?
Where is it? Is it in Atlanta or is it in Carolina?
I believe it's in Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's in Carolina.
Yeah, I can't take a divisional. I would look elsewhere, even though the Panthers did not look good today. Divisional game on the road Thursday night. Stranger things have happened. It's not like Atlanta's a heavy favorite by any means. I would look elsewhere if possible.
Grim, I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to toot my own horn. I feel like I'm pretty good helping you out with running back start sits, wide receiver start sits. Eliminator pool is my kryptonite. I make the wrong calls consistently, and you're still alive going into week 10. If you think it's a good play, it's probably a good play. You've gotten 9 right so far. JL, how do you feel about Atlanta against Carolina?
Yeah, it's tough. I think that is going to be closer to a 50-50 toss-up. It's in division game. I don't know what your other options are.
And I believe Grim fan's a Jets fan, so shout out on the win if I am correct there. I believe he's a Jets fan.
That's a huge
he or
win.
She.
We had a question in here from BT, said, I need Olave, Kenyon Frank, and Isaiah Likely to score a combined 27 points for me to win on Monday. You think I have a chance? So we already talked a little bit about Kenyon Frank, but whenever you add Kenyon Frank, Chris Olave, and Isaiah Likely, how likely is it that he scores 27 combined points tomorrow night?
I'd say it's pretty likely. I'd pencil in Kenyon Drake for roughly 10 points. I think a safe number for Olave is somewhere around there. So you're looking 7-ish points for Isaiah Likely. I think it's likely.
I'm with you, Jay. I would give, if I had to bet my money on this BT, I'd give you the W. JL, do you agree?
Yep. I would. I do agree. I think that
as long as it's PPR,
players can absolutely do that.
I do declare. I meant to say agree, but then I forgot what word I was going to say. Now.
Okay?
I think just Olave and Kenyon Frank will get 27 points combined. I
will now be calling him Kenyon Frank for.
Frankly, it's likely.
To give BT some credit, they did correct themselves with Kenyon Drake, and
immediately.
I chose to ignore it because Kenyon Frank is hilarious.
I would do the same.
Kenyon Frank.
Hey, you should get a custom Ravens jersey with his number. It says Frank on the back.
Kenyon Frank.
You got to get the full name, though. Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. Another exciting game, but from a different perspective than that Dolphins-Bears game. The Cincinnati Bengals absolutely demolished the Carolina Panthers. Final score 42-21. But even though that shows a 3-touchdown win by the Bengals, it does not accurately portray just how much they dominated this game. Bengals got out to a big lead early. They were up 35-0 at halftime. So Panthers were able to put up some garbage time points there in the third and fourth quarter. But garbage time started after halftime for the Panthers. It was already garbage time whenever halftime hit. Joe Burrow left the game during the third quarter. They brought Brandon Allen in as well. Like, they didn't even need their starter for most of the second half in this game either. And a lot of that was due to the performance by one Mr. Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon scored 55.1 PPR fantasy points, had over 40 at halftime. He had 211 total yards, 5 total touchdowns, and that came from 153 yards on the ground with 4 rushing touchdowns, 58 receiving yards, and a touchdown through the air as well. Great job, Joe Mixon.
I saw somewhere, I don't remember the exact stat, but it was like he was somewhere around RB15, RB13 before this game. He jumped all the way up to RB2 on the season with this performance. So that's quite the jump.
I was talking to my girlfriend. I was like, oh, Joe Mixon just scored his 4th touchdown of the day. And she's like, oh, I hope I'm not playing him. And then I walk to the other room and I hear from the other room, crap! Joe Mixon was on her opponent's team, dropping. And it was a league with weird scoring, over 100 points in that league. JL,
hey, JL, did you happen to face Joe Mixon in any leagues this week?
I don't know. I have won so many of them. It's hard to keep track.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you done bragging, Jay?
No, I'm not.
Okay, because it was going to be my turn to brag about the league I started him in.
Okay,
but going forward, Joe Mixon so far this year has been relatively inefficient on the ground behind a weak Bengals offensive line. Now we see this game, Jay, like you mentioned, just launching him up the rankings. I think he is an RB1 in every week start, but how high is that ceiling for him now that we've seen this? Does he have this kind of upside rest of season, or was this just one of those games where everything went his way?
I do think he has this type of upside for the rest of the season. Yes, he's been inefficient, but this new offensive line is still gelling. They're still, becoming a unit. What I've loved about Joe Mixon this whole year, he's getting targets. Everybody says he doesn't get involved in the passing game, but he's consistently been involved. He's getting a lot of targets. Excuse me. Go ahead, Jo.
He said, "Go ahead, JL." Like I was supposed to finish his thought. What? So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, Jay, thanks. Jay was saying,
he was talking about Joe Mixon's upside rest of season.
Yeah, Joe Mixon is. Oh, and he was saying that he doesn't get involved in the passing game, and everybody says that. Do people say that he doesn't get involved in the passing game, Simon?
That's been a narrative. That's been a narrative for Joe Mixon, is that his upside is capped because he's not a receiving back.
Yeah, I mean, if that's been a myth, then let's consider it busted. Because just look at his receiving. I knew that was going to be a banger as soon as I started saying it. I was like, "Yep, this is a good one."
Come back after the Mythbuster thing. Thanks for finishing my thought for me, JL. Sorry.
You're welcome. Tons of targets all the time. Target, big time. Have fun.
If that's a myth, consider it busted. Next, guys.
Are we sponsored by Discovery now? Is that what this is?
Yeah.
How you're telling us?
One time for my for a project in high school, we had to do a semester-long project, and I submitted a proposal that was literally just an episode of Mythbusters. Like it was something I watched them do, and I was like, for sure, this is going to get rejected. And then it got approved, and I just took the results from the Mythbusters experiment and turned it in and got an A on my semester-long project. I tried to do the experiment, but then I accidentally killed 10 goldfish and wasn't about to kill another 10. So I was like, they already did this. I'll just change the numbers a little bit and throw it together.
Like, was it progressive? Like, did you kill like 1 to 10 in a row, or was it all 10 at once? Like
all 10 at once died.
Okay. I was going to say, like,
I was putting goldfish.
That?
I was putting them through a maze.
Anything else?
Yeah, no, it was pretty sad. It was horribly sad. It really hurt my feelings. And that's why I did not buy another 10. And that's why I plagiarized Mythbusters.
Football.
So, it's okay. It was an accident. Guys, on the other side of the ball, PJ Walker ended up getting benched for Baker Mayfield in this game. Jay, do you think this is a permanent benching or just they were out of contention? Let's throw Baker Mayfield and see what we got going on.
I mean, you would think that the way that PJ Walker's looked the past couple of games, he's gained another start. But honestly, I would not be surprised to see Baker Mayfield make the start on Thursday. As bad as PJ Walker looked today, it was rough. I mean, he had more attempts than yards. Like that's not a good sign. I think you're going to see Baker on Thursday.
Jill, do you agree? Is Baker the starter for this team now?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of expected this at some point. These wheels were going to fall off. I've been saying the last couple of weeks that the matchups for him have been pretty enticing the last couple of weeks. Even though he's had these big plays, he's looked good. Cincinnati was going to give him more of a run for his money. And so I think we could see a switch. He's got Atlanta again next week, which is not fantastic defense. Then he's got Baltimore and Denver, which are both pretty good defenses.
Absolutely. Baker came in and played pretty well. He threw 2 touchdowns compared to PJ Walker's 2 interceptions. One going to a player we talked about this morning, JL, Mr. Terrace Marshall seems to be getting more involved in this offense. JL, is Terrace Marshall a startable weekly player at this point in the season?
I think you can flex him in. Yeah, absolutely. You have to keep an eye on how this Panthers offense continually shifts as the season goes on, who the quarterback's going to be. But Terrace Marshall is starting to carve out a role for himself. He was a talented prospect, and his initial season just really was derailed. So I could see him getting more involved here. He's someone to keep on your radar, but he's not an every week must start now.
Looking at the running backs, now this was a game where they got down big early. They were down 35-0 at halftime, which often limits the running game. But there were high expectations for D'Onta Foreman coming off of last week's huge performance. This week, he only had 7 carries for 23 yards. Undrafted free agent rookie Raheem Blackshear, who they signed off of the Bills practice squad earlier this year, had 5 carries to D'Onta Foreman 7 for 13 yards. And he's the one who got a touchdown as well this week. Jay, was this just a game script thing? They were out of it, maybe seeing what they got in this rookie on their team, or are you worried about D'Onta Foreman?
I'm not worried about him because I didn't have unrealistic expectations after the huge game we saw last week. I think there's always that possibility, especially with Chuba Hubbard out, when he's going to get the majority of the work. I think that you're going to see better days ahead for D'Onta Foreman, but he's not that fringe RB1 that a lot of people were crowning him as because of the volume that he saw last week in the huge game. I think he's a RB2 that has a really high ceiling and a really low floor.
Yeah, guys, let's go ahead and move on to our next game. Not much else to talk about there, and we got to make sure we hit on this one. The New York Jets taking down the Buffalo Bills 20-17, bringing the Bills to 0-2 in their division this year so far.
Dustin, I know Dustin is pretty happy that we are hitting on this one. Excuse me. Buffalo, 10.5-point favorites going into this game. The Jets covered. The total was 46, which the under was hit. They only scored 37 points in this game. Man, let's start on the Josh Allen side of this. Or let's start on the Jets side of this, guys, because the Jets, man, the Jets are looking good. Are the Jets legitimate Super Bowl contenders this year?
No, not with Zach Wilson at quarterback. Zach Wilson is not good enough to lead a team to a Super Bowl. Now, I will say, I do think they can make the playoffs. I got a lot of shade for that, JL, whenever I said that on the morning show the other day. Not from you, but from people in the chat, people coming in saying that the Jets were no way playoff contenders. They are. Look at this. If they can beat the Bills 20-17, and with what we've seen from them so far this year, this is a team that could threaten in the wild card round. I just can't see them going all the way with Zach Wilson. And without Breece Hall, it's going to be rough.
What about you, Jay? You think the Jets could be legitimate Super Bowl contenders this year, beating the Bills?
I think that Simon hit the nail on the head with one of his last statements. If Breece Hall was on this team, I could see it because he could lean on him. While Michael Carter had a decent game and James Robinson, I believe, caught a touchdown, they're not balanced enough. Zach Wilson isn't the type of player that's going to be able to carry this team on his back. I think they'll make the playoffs, and I would not be surprised to see them win a game. But Super Bowl contender, I think it's still too early. Sorry, Dustin.
Dustin said skip next game.
Skip
but then we got Grim in here. Jets.
Jets. Yes, the Jets pulled out a win in this game. It was pretty wild. Garrett Wilson had 2 great fantasy games over the past 2 weeks. You guys think that this is Garrett Wilson's breakout? He had 17.9 fantasy points, 8 receptions, 9 targets, 92 yards, and no touchdowns this week. The receiving game. You guys think this is Garrett Wilson's breakout?
I wouldn't say breakout because he kind of had his breakout earlier in the year. I know it's been some rough sledding since then, but I think there's no doubt that the Jets want him to be the alpha in this wide receiver core. I don't understand why they refuse to get Elijah Moore involved. No targets again today. I think Elijah Moore is extremely talented, but I think Garrett Wilson's definitely the one to roster, and I think he's pretty much an every week start. I think there's going to be some lean days, especially with Zach Wilson only throwing the ball 25 times, but looks like this offense, at least through the air, goes through Garrett Wilson, and I think he's somebody you can feel pretty confident throwing in your lineup.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He's the only Jets wide receiver I'm comfortable starting. That being said, I'm not thrilled every week you're going to have bad games from Garrett Wilson just due to the passing volume here. But that being said, he can do this as well. If he's getting 9 targets, you're pretty happy about throwing him in your lineup.
So where do you guys see him finishing end of season? Or
Wide receiver 2 range, probably. I think back end wide receiver 2 is where I see him finishing. He'll have big blow up games. He'll probably have some top 12 games. And he'll also have games where he's in that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 range back there in like the 40s, 50s.
Yep, I completely agree.
Man, you guys are like the same person.
We are.
You guys form your own glob.
Wow, Simon, I'm insulted.
On the running back side of the New York Jets ball, we got Michael Carter, 12 carries, 76 yards, and a touchdown. James Robinson, 13 carries, 48 yards, no touchdown. We're seeing this split a little more even now. Are either of these guys, are you guys starting either of these guys going forward? What's your take on the Jets running back situation here?
I was real confused because I know James Robinson was listed as questionable yesterday. They weren't even sure if he was going to play, but then they said, okay, questionable, but we're going to play him this week. And the dude was involved pretty heavily in this offense and came down with a touchdown. I hate to parrot kind of what I said with the Dolphins, but I do think this is going to be a little bit messy. I think both of these running backs are going to be involved, and there's a reason they added James Robinson here, and it's because they don't want to give Michael Carter the full workload. That being said, they're probably in RB3 range. I think you can start both of them, and you're hoping for a touchdown.
I see Grim fan in the chat said J-Rob did catch a touchdown today. He's absolutely right. I didn't mention the receiving stats, but 2 receptions, 2 targets, and a receiving touchdown for James Robinson this week.
Yeah, I think Simon hit the nail on the head. One thing I will say, it's time to start looking at some playoff matchups. And the Jets, one of the reasons I was super excited for Breece Hall, not just because he looked good, but they have a fantastic playoff schedule when it comes to running backs. Detroit, Jacksonville, and Seattle, 3 of the teams that give up the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. I think you're looking at back-end RB2s with both of these guys, RB3 status, like Simon said. In the right matchups, they can put up some pretty big games, but I think there are going to be some lean games. If James Robinson didn't catch that touchdown, you would not be happy right now.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I don't know that either of them are really that reliable, but I think they're flex-worthy starts. Moving on to the Bill side of this ball, Josh Allen, he ended up having a pretty good fantasy game, 26.8 fantasy points, 18 completions on 34 attempts, 205 yards. He did have 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles in this game. So not a fantastic game for him football-wise. He had 9 carries for 86 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns with Gate, which really buoyed his fantasy performance here. What'd you guys see from Josh Allen this week? What was going wrong?
Well, I remember they pointed it out on the broadcast. He did get hit in the arm, and it looked like he was banged up a little bit. It was close. I believe it was in the 3rd quarter. Looks like maybe just some soreness, but that could have affected his play today. He's still Josh Allen. You're not benching Josh Allen. You're continuing to play him week in, week out. That being said, monitor that arm because we've seen these elite quarterbacks play and have subpar play compared to expectations. Just look at Justin Herbert with the rib injury through the past couple weeks of this season. I don't expect that from Josh Allen, but keep an eye on it because it did look like he hurt his arm at some point during that game.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Moving on to the running backs here. The Devin Singletary, James Cook, Isaiah McKenzie all got some work. Nyheim Hines did have a target in this game, but other than that, received no rushing attempts. Devin Singletary is still the main guy there, but only 8.8 fantasy points this week. He had 8 carries, 24 yards, no touchdowns. This is largely this is a close game, so they were passing a lot. So they just didn't end up using a lot of the running backs. How are you guys viewing these guys going forward? Are you confident throwing them in your lineup, or are they more of a sit week in, week out for Devin Singletary?
I still like Devin Singletary. I think that he's somebody who this is what you expect from him. I mean, you knew that Josh Allen is able to run the ball. He likes to call his own number in the red zone. I think that, the games that Buffalo's going to be up in plenty of games. They're a very good team. You're going to see better days, more production out of Devin Singletary. But with Josh Allen able to run the ball, you're going to have games like this.
Yeah. And I keep going back to what Sal Capaccio told us, Jail, the Bills beat reporter, whenever we were asking about these trade rumors about Alvin Kamara, about CMC to the Bills. And he said, I don't understand these trade rumors because we have Josh Allen and this team runs through Josh Allen. Why spend all of our future draft capital on these backs when we know the winning recipe is to let Josh Allen throw the ball, let Josh Allen run the ball? So you're going to see games like this. This isn't a team that needs the run to be successful. That being said, they didn't find success today. There's better games ahead for Devin Singletary.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Guys, I know Sunday Night Football is about to kick off. It's got that 7:20 start time. Before we go, though, I know we had some questions in the chat. One from Grim Fan that I wanted to hit, JL. Grim Fan said, I need 42 points from Kamara, Duvernay, and Robert Woods between tonight and tomorrow. Do I have a chance to win? John Luke, how do you like Grim Fan's chances? 42 points from Kamara, Duvernay, and Robert Woods.
Doing some quick back of the napkin math here. I think, how many do they need? 42?
42.
That's going to be close. That's going to be real close. I feel like I'll give you a 47% chance.
Jay, how do you feel about Grim Fan's chances of winning this game?
We go with a 46% chance. I think if Bobby Trees is able to get in the end zone, I think you get a pretty good shot. He's the key. I think Duvernay and Kamara are going to put up pretty solid numbers. It's depends on what Bobby Trees can do tonight. Maybe he can get some garbage time.
Duvernay's the key for me in this one because I don't have much faith in Robert Woods. I think you need a touchdown or two from Duvernay, and then you got a shot. But I'd put your odds at around 40%, a little bit less optimistic than these guys, but still in the range of outcomes. Everyone who hung out with us today, thank you so much for choosing to spend your evening before Sunday Night Football with us. We'll be back here next week, same time, same place. But if you want to see some more of us, head on over to our YouTube channel at Front Yard Fantasy. Check out our videos there and hit that subscribe button if you enjoy what you're seeing over there. Guys, real quick, predictions. Final score of the Chiefs-Titans game. JL.
I don't know. 31-10.
31-10. Jay.
45-14.
And I'll say 27-6. I do not think the Titans are going to get much going at all. Guys, we will see you next week. Until then, though, we are out of here. Enjoy the rest of your week 9 and good luck in your fantasy matchups.
Bye-bye.
Adios.